Your story actually made me think of a story as well.
Hit me with your story.
Yeah, so it was also in the new grad year, my second rotation. In first rotation, well, second rotation, but now my first community experience as a psychiatric nurse. And it was a nursing, what was it, like a nursing meeting, so nurses are kind of like encouraged to have nursing meetings once in a while, just to talk about some fun nursing
Is this the monthly nursing meetings that we have?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I remember, I'm new to the team and we're having a nursing meeting and I'm sitting there, but some of the topics was quite fascinating that the nurses brought up and spoke about. And I thought to myself, something I need to do is gain a bit of confidence, have a bit of a voice. Nursing is a practice, Giovanni. So, you keep practicing at the things you're not as good at, confidence, all those kind of things. And I thought, okay, I'm also going to contribute to the discussion, So I remember that my preceptor had 30 clients that, she was working with, precepting me, and I had 15. But the preceptor is responsible for the 15 on my cases as well, kind of having to oversee that. But the policy actually says if you're a precepting nurse, your caseload should be reduced so that you can compensate for, the person you're precepting.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. So she had 30 people she was working with and the 15 on me. And so it was basically 45 people that, she had to kind of oversee and help me kind of along. And I brought that up, I brought that up as a discussion and things, not necessarily to complain about it, just to kind of raise the awareness, because we were talking about workloads and all those kind of things.
Just a big FY fucking I for everyone in this fucking meeting. Just to know this is what's happening.
Yes. And everybody, received it well. I was glad I said, had my say. And the meeting finished. We all went back to our desk. So we've got an open plan office. So I went and sat at my desk. And as I kind of wanted to carry on with work, the team leader walked up to me and screamed at me in front of all my colleagues, like on the top of her voice, screaming that if I have problems with how she runs the shift, that I need to come and talk to her in person. I should not embarrass her in front of her colleagues. And red in the face screamed at me, and I remember just sitting there on my chair, kind of shrinking away. And then she turned around and walked back to her office. And still remember sitting there like, what just happened? I've never experienced this before in my life. Very embarrassed because all my colleagues are sitting there just looking at me. And how do I repair this? I'm coming through placement. This is my team leader that I report to. I didn't mean to offend her by, at all. And I just remember walking up to her office and apologizing profusely. But thinking back on it, why I apologize is I guess it's more to dampen the fire, so that I don't get kind of, picked on or bullied or anything like that.
Singled out.
Yeah, just to smother the flames. So I just went and apologized, and and I walked away from there feeling like this is so unprofessional. I don't know how this person even became a team leader, and that's why I asked the question. It influenced my practice. So as a tutor, I would never scream at a student nurse in front of everybody. It's important that the feedback is constructive. That feedback was not constructive. So I guess that's something that stood out to me.
This is actually a perfect thing, because we were talking earlier about starting new segments of the podcast, and I wanted to start a segment about things that piss me off, right? So I think this is a perfect opportunity, because you've just made me think of something which really fucking pisses me off.
Let's hear it.
This is what pisses me off. The toxic fucking environment that nurses have against other nurses. So...
And I'll see you on that.
That fucking pisses me off, because the way that I look at it, when you become registered, your experience 2-3 years under your belt, you are not really required, but it's kind of expected that you share that knowledge and experience with the new upcoming nurses and try and help support them to become fully fledged, appropriate, skilled, competent nurses. So when you have someone who comes across you, and because you had a discussion or you brought up something, something quite relevant even, that you got fucking screamed at in fucking front of everyone. That makes my story feel like a fucking pushover, actually. But it pisses me off because it happens everywhere.
It happens.
It's happened to me coming through nursing school when I had a good idea that I wanted to come into mental health, and I was pretty settled on it. And a common question you get asked out on the field as a student is like, oh, where do you see yourself, nursing, blah, 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 blah. And then as soon as you say mental health, they treat you like shit. They're like, oh, that's not real nursing. Oh, really? You're just going to waste all your skills and go become a mental health nurse? And it makes you feel like shit, when really it should be the opposite. You should be encouraging people. Wow, that's an interesting field. Why? Why do you want to go there? Ask some questions about it. Don't just fucking shut us down and make us feel like pieces of shit, because it carries on, You see it in those really old school fucking nurses.
And that's what I wanted to elaborate on, Joe. I wonder, because you used the word old school, I actually wonder if it comes down to a form of hierarchy. Like, nursing is an older profession. It's been around since I'm actually thinking the World War II, maybe even before that.
Florence Nightingale, brother.
Yes.
Florence Nightingale.
So there was an element of hierarchy there. So I can remember speaking to some of my colleagues saying those beds on the wards and stuff had to be made perfectly, otherwise there would have been consequences. So I'm wondering whether it's a form of hierarchy passed down generation. A lot of the younger nurses coming through now, especially now since the new grad programs came in place, don't have that intense kind of hierarchy or intimidating kind of old school type. So that's just something I was wondering whether it can be a form of that, or is it just individualized burnout? I don't know.
If you speak to people who were trained before it became a mixture of practical and academic, and it was the nurses who got trained in the hospitals, lived in the hospitals,
and the old psych
trained in the hospitals, it was very militant. It was very militant, and I think that's where a lot of that comes from. You do as I say and do it exactly how I wanted, or else fuck you.
Yeah, especially the matron.
But that was the attitude. Now, not every nurse turned out that way. We know plenty of nurses that went through that and became amazing nurses. But that's because they moved on with the times.
Yeah.
They adapted, they evolved, they changed.
Yeah.
It's the ones that refused to fucking change, refused to fucking take on this new view of nursing, refuse to acknowledge that you don't have to be trained in the hospital, that that's what nurses are. Nursing has changed dramatically over the years, and I think those old school nurses see that dying and are desperately holding on to what they know and what they understand. And by doing that, they externalize their anger and frustration, and they shit on people. They absolutely fucking shit on people. I've seen it happen. I've experienced it myself, and that's why it pisses me off. Some of the fucking nursing culture out there is so shit. That's why we have a high case of bullying. There are fucking articles upon articles upon articles of fucking bullying in nursing school.
Yeah.
Not nursing school, sorry, but in hospitals by senior nurses, because a lot of them are just fucking assholes, and that's not who you want looking after your parent, looking after your brother, your sister, your grandparents.
And Giovanni, like, part of me, realized that a big part of your day you spend at work. And if you are in an environment that's positive and encourages you to be in a space where you're comfortable, and I think your work output, for example, the way you practice as a nurse, gets influenced, from your workspace. So if your manager is supportive and you're able to kind of talk about concerns and stresses, and you feel supported, you can go out in the field and you can actually go and make a difference. Where if you feel bullied at work, you're not in a good headspace, and then you have to hold or work alongside people who's also struggling. It's not easy,
It's bullshit. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm getting really animated and fired up about it, because it's bringing back my past traumas and it's making me angry. But I can't believe that person fucking walked up to you in the middle of the fucking office and screamed at you.
I know, but
not a stern talking to, not like a very passive aggressive conversation, but fucking screamed at you like I can't imagine. Like, I'm not a manager. I'm not a coordinator, right? But I know that that's not how you fucking deal with shit, you know? And it